Hey nerds. So, going to talk about Alex O'Connor debating with Destiny about whether animals have moral worth, which is a very interesting topic. And of course, Alex O'Connor is the British YouTube philosopher who had an awesome mustache for a while, but now doesn't have it anymore. And he makes some very interesting philosophical arguments, even ones that he doesn't necessarily believe in. But he's made a lot of videos about being vegan and animal rights, like inspired by animal rights philosophers like David Singer, for example, who I believe is also a utilitarian. But anyway, he's talking with the famous political streamers, debated political figures like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. And like I said, they're debating about that, and they get into this is a very interesting topic.
I've heard you say, essentially, there is such thing as moral consideration or moral worth. It just is something that sort of doesn't apply to non-human animals.
Yeah, they're basically philosophical zombies to me, I guess.
Is that true of every animal that isn't a human being? So, like chimpanzees, dolphins.
Yeah.
The problem
like
that
the philosophical zombies, it doesn't actually obviously mean the same thing as literal zombies in movies and TV shows. It's not humans who die and then come back to undead status as zombies who try to eat people and eat their brains, but it's basically actors who have no moral worth, and they're like neutral people. You could say they're like NPCs in video games, kind of. They just do random. Well, no, NPCs isn't a good example. Philosophical zombies, because they're dead, but they commit actions, so they can do things that have moral worth, but as themselves. Well, actually, no, they can't do anything of moral worth, is the argument, because they're philosophical zombies. So they're automatic. They automatically don't have any moral rights because they're dead. That's basically the point. So that's what he means. So by philosophical zombies, he means that animals don't have any moral rights because they're basically functionally the same as being as good as dead. And the argument for man being above animals is that we're just better than them because team people, or they don't have the same they don't have the same evolved brain as us, so that gives us supremacy over them. Like, I've talked about John Locke's opinion about this, for example, before, the famous empiricist philosopher who has the, in my opinion, ridiculous opinion that man is above animals just because we're superior to animals because we're smarter and create societies and shit. I don't think that means we're morally superior. But I also am not like an animal rights activist or anything like that either. I eat meat, but I mean, like, testing makeup in animals in labs and fucking up their brains and killing them is fucked up. So, probably like the average person's perspective. But of course, they both have extreme positions on this.
that I have with your view is that it's sort of like an on-off switch. All life on Earth exists on a scale of gradation. No species has ever given birth to a new species. Your parents were humans, their parents were humans, their parents were humans. And then you go back far enough and you're looking at apish creatures that more resemble a chimpanzee than they do a modern Homo sapiens. And you go further back and you...
And that's right, yeah, there isn't one in evolution. There isn't one species that gives birth to one other species. Like, there isn't an ape who suddenly gives birth to a human. There are gradual changes, gradual physical features, like, less hair, longer arms, standing more upright, that sort of thing. Different things gradually happen to different individual apes as we gradually become humans over a long process. That's why I said that.
And you get to a fish, right? But there's no distinct boundary here. They resemble a chimpanzee than they do a modern Homo sapiens. And you go further back and you get to a fish, right? But there's no distinct boundary here. There has to be a point at which you just sort of arbitrarily say, the sort of apish hominid on this side of the line, I do not care, inanimate object, do whatever you want with them. And the identical creature on the other side of the line, human being, sentience, care about, want to sort of hold people at gunpoint to make sure that they don't get cold at night. That to me seems like an entirely untenable position. I've heard you say, essentially, there is such thing as moral consideration or moral worth. It just is something that sort of doesn't apply to inanimate object, do whatever you want with them. And the identical creature on the other side of the line, human being, sentience, care about, want to sort of hold people at gunpoint to make sure that they don't get cold at night. That to me seems like an entirely untenable position. I've heard you
Yeah,
say essentially
I totally agree. Like, it's too much of an extreme perspective. There isn't this, it's just a false dichotomy thinking that we are humans, we're superior, and then animals have no rights. So, like philosophical zombies, do whatever the fuck you want with them, torture them, eat them, that kind of shit. Like I said, I don't have a moral problem with that personally, but I understand why some people do. But it's like, you can say that animals have rights, and you can look like, people have been arguing about this for centuries, even thousands. Well, yeah, definitely thousands of years. Like, who was it? Was it Aristotle who said, "Man is the smartest animal"? I don't think that's the actual line, but anyway, like, why are we superior? That's just our human bias. And I am on team people, so I want us to use a human bias, but I think we can also do that while trying to not kill, well, like, not destroy other species and make them go extinct. Because if I understand correctly, with things like hunting and conservation, you should kill some animals anyway, but we can be team people and progress as a human civilization, while trying to minimize the degree to which we torture other creatures. So, team people, but we don't have to fuck up the world and make species go extinct.